How's everybody doing? My name is Dupe, and I am the developer of Apsis Online. Now, Apsis Online is a multi-user roguelike inspired by Rogue and other games like Sector and other, of course, Dwarf Fortress and other similar large-scale projects in the roguelike scene. The game mixes turn-based mechanics with a sort of real-time simulation happening on the back end. And without speaking too much, I want to go ahead and create an account. I actually went to log in there. Now, what I did before the video began was formatted the database system, which I wrote over the course of probably about 6 years now, in order to kind of make an authentic experience. Essentially playing as if I was a new player, creating an account. So, connecting, link established, creating ID, me, configuring, registration complete. Welcome to the Rogue Bulletin Board system, which is, of course, named after the genre roguelikes. So what I want to do is verify my account by logging in again. And, match found. Welcome back. Stand at the edge, shout, "This is my voyage." Gaze deeply into the expanse below. Await a new breath from within the speckled void. Begin again, beneath the glittering ripples of the stars as an observer like so many before you. This is your voyage, your beginning. You are alive. After nearly a decade at light speed, your ship has reached its destination. An Earth-like planet serving as a rendezvous for you and others seeking to escape the hell that home became. An onboard AI begins uploading the necessary information to your skin feed. An infosort reports low fuel and living supplies just as the hull shudders to indicate that you have slipped into orbit. No one has ever gone this far before. It's time. And we're going to wake up. So I want to give you a little bit of backstory. There's a few things I want to mention in this video that I wasn't able to mention in previous iterations of the dev play. Most importantly, I wanted to make this video to showcase some of the newer features, something I always mention, in light of the fact that the scope and goals have changed since previous videos. In particular, there's this sort of backstory now regarding the starting planet, whereas previously I had a plan to procedurally generate every planet, essentially starting from the starting planet. So instead, we now have a little bit of a canon. Before we get into all that, HGC BIOS okay, booting SimOS, injecting vitals, and adrenaline, and waking sequence is complete. Now we wake up here in a sort of chamber, I don't know why the word is escaping me, but sort of cryostasis, right? So that's the cryostasis chamber, and we just walked out of that. You might recognize from older videos that the kiosk here has changed. And this particular kiosk represents the Simple Arms and Research Terminal, or the sort. Personnel aboard the ship is currently me, which you can see to the right of that here, that I'm awake, and there are no other personnel or crew members aboard the ship. Each color here represents a particular task or job, I should say, ranging from engineer, medical staff, and ordnance, and so on, captain, and what have you. So if we go down to weapons, though, we have a blast rifle, the Haldren 4, the trusty MK3, the Morcolt 45, the KR Light Falconet. The red number here represents the damage. I believe the white number represents the range, and and I said in the last video, but I don't exactly remember what the blue stands for, but that's because this is a particularly old feature that I hope that I fleshed out in version 6, current version, or current upcoming version, I should say, or version 7. And actually, we can go ahead and test out the blast rifle. By clicking enter, it says, "Would you like to test this weapon in a combat simulation?" I can say yes. All right, so let's do a little dance in here. Get close, and I hit the F button. Character turns red. The directional pad, or arrows, I should say, reflect which way I will be shooting. Before I go ahead and take out this drone, I want to point out to the top left-hand corner of the screen, you see my vitals, which, being at a turn-based game, is It's essentially showing that my heart is not beating right. So we kind of holding our breath before we shoot. LH and RH stand for left hand and right hand. Since the blast rifle is a large weapon, it occupies both. And we are in the echo space, which is sort of like a virtual reality, augmented reality. Combat simulation complete, SimVM terminated. And we're back. This thing over here is the body harness. I mentioned I'll talk about this in a later video. In a previous video, the body harness will allow for players to genetically engineer themselves or also harvest their own DNA to create clones and other creatures who could then join their party and, perform combative and non-combative tasks. We are aboard the spaceship right now, or the default spaceship. It is possible in the future that there will be different types of spaceships and spaceship customization. We didn't get that far yet, but that is something that I have been working on. And again, if you take a look to the top left-hand corner, you'll see that there's a sort of area indicator. So right now I'm in a kitchen module. And this thing over here is a physics machine, which only accepts coins, which we do not have. I'll take you on a little bit of a tour briefly. Here's the engine room, and if we go a little too close to the engines, it says getting closer to the generators would fry out your circuits. Now again, I apologize if you have seen previous videos. I did cover a lot of these things, but we had some issues with bugs and things like that. I feel like now we have a much more stable project here, and I figured I'd do a little bit of a recap. Like repairing the engines. Before I get into that, let's hit Nevermind here. If I hit the M key, it shows the ship logistics overview. Each particular module is numbered on beneath the legend there. You can see there's a bridge, the kitchen module, engine room, the starboard corridors, cryostasis, portside corridors, and you are here. In this case, the engine room. If a particular module number was red or yellow, it would, you can kind of see. Check out that; it's pretty cool. That would be offline or damage, respectively. I could, of course, scan and jump. Scanning would be me scanning for other players in the sector to potentially attack, right, or board their ships. Jumping would allow me to jump to a different system if the planet we were. And if you see below, it says the ship is currently in orbit. If the planet we were in orbit above had a jump tether, which is something you can read about in the Voyager's Handbook. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So the engine is damaged, and I'll actually leave here to show you what that looks like. CS3 is red. So let's go back, and I'll attempt to repair it. So the engines are damaged. There is a 20% chance you will repair them, and a 80% chance of a meltdown. And we'll attempt to repair. The engine repair is successful. This would typically mean I'd be able to jump, but there is no warp tether on the planet below. And I mentioned getting into some of the backstory, but it'd be more interesting if we actually went down to the planet itself. But before we do that, let's take a trip to the med bay, which says the sliding door opens, revealing the ship's med bay. Its only illumination being a dim fluorescent light just 10 feet above. Various instruments seem to hum quietly in unison. 2 automatons stand lifelessly next to an operating table. You could stay longer, but conclude that by doing so, you will be wasting your time. And this here is the escape pod, and 4 deceivingly dim lights illuminate the shuttle's plush interior. Now the top left-hand corner says, are you sure? Risk unknown. If we had sent drones down to the planet, it would give us a better risk analysis. And in this case, it is unknown. And so we're willing to take that risk. It is very possible I can crash right now, and it has happened. All right, Bromius 2 is temperate and habitable. It is also the first sort of planet that the USA had colonized after, a bunch of issues back on Earth occurred and kind of forced our hand. And so we can continue. One of the newer things I added here was a actual kind of city, for the lack of a better word. There's not much of one, as you will see when we get to the ground. And you saw it kind of disappear there. That is a bug, but we're just going to ignore that. For the time being, I deleted the database, whereas previously it wouldn't have disappeared. It's the whole thing. But If we settle, it comes back just to kind of represent that, hey, yeah, this is where you are. Bromius is a squat high-tech slum punctuated by a tall, rusty USA admin office. And again, you have your statistics, economics, diplomacy, temperate planet, sector 1. Population here is 1, that's me. This planet is dangerous and unsettled. One thing I did leave alone in the back end was the actual terrain as it stands. So you'll take a look at that in a moment. EXO and hub values represent the value of imports and exports of whoever the dominant frontier company is on the planet. The global domestic product represents the combined value of the frontier companies present on the planet. In this case, the USA is the dominant faction. Diplomacy, humans are welcome here. Alien species are welcome here. The machine is welcome here. Feel free to join our Discord. I talked a little bit about some of the newer entities that'll be seen in the game. So we can go ahead and embark. And what you're seeing here for those with the untrained sort of ASCII eye, the green Y represents a tree. The sort of brown squiggles are mud or dirt, particularly mud. And the lines represent walls. These white dots here are floors. The blue squiggles are all puddles and water in groups. These could be lakes, rivers, and so on. These hashes here, these pound symbols are crude walls. So that means the wall is damaged is what we're essentially looking at, and that it's a pretty dirty place, right, for whatever reason. If I try to go left or right from within this doorway here, right, it says something is in your way. And if I walk out here, there seems to be a path leading west and northeast, and we'll take the northeast path. I suppose as I explore, I'll give you a little bit of the backstory here. So again, we crashed, or not rather, landed, and we don't really know what's going on. All we know is that we were sent to the edges of space, to the only human colony in interstellar space, and we've arrived, and the place is a little bit of a dump. The landing site was, a mess. If we go east, the green @ symbol or rogue here, or rather character, is or represents a scientist. As these here, like the cryostasis chamber aboard the spaceship, are beds or other places where players could sleep and replenish their health and so on. And again, I mentioned vitals earlier, but you can see it bounce into the top left corner there. And, that's our heartbeat, essentially, and we're alive. I thought that I had the stairs enabled. So what I'll do is I'll take a quick break. I'll be right back, and I want to show you what some of the work I've been doing on Z levels. Alrighty, so I'm back with admin privileges, I guess, so that I could actually show you what I need to show you. So going north here would allow me to, those watching familiar with Dwarf Fortress, the greater than represents sort of an upper ramp or a stair, less than the opposite. And so we go here and hit the same symbol, and we go upstairs, and it reveals a little bit more of this complex. Of course, you've probably been able to tell by now, but there's a certain view radius. And so, going over this bridge here, we're going to the other section of this structure where we can go downstairs, and now on the other side, and there's a bit of a dirt path going up towards some crops. You can see there's some over here. And if we go further south, we find ourselves kind of back at this this small cluster of buildings here. We go north, and I mentioned the green character over in the lab here, being a scientist, who I would interact with, but there's a lot of work to be done. Long story short, I talked to a few people in the Discord about some of the possibilities regarding genetic modification and things like that. You might be able to talk to scientists in the future. They, shoot you up with some serums. You go to sleep, you wake up, you might have an extra arm, of some fins, right? Wings and whatever the case may be. Of course, you might have to harvest these particular traits on your own, bringing vials of genetic material to specialists on planets, or do a lot of this stuff on your ship, depending on your skill level in terms of genetic engineering, things of that nature. Going up here, this is the Director of Agriculture for the USA. Again, won't be interacting with characters on the plants yet. There's a lot of work to be done. A lot of dynamic, you know, the personalities are very dynamic, and I wanted the text to feel a little more realistic than what you typically see in an MMO. I don't want people standing around and saying, "Hey, welcome to the planet" over and over, or whatever the deal is. So, you know, I'll generally avoid interacting with NPCs here, but I do want to showcase just some of what has been going on as far as development of the planet side mechanics. Now, going westward along this path, we run into two soldiers represented as the red characters there, and we're like, well, why are they here? Well, I mentioned there not being a jump tether on this planet. Game canon says that this structure, which as you can see here is a little bit of a mess. I mentioned crew walls. You have some broken up walls. You have some red sort of rocks coming out. That's like sort of like volcanic rock, right? This is molten rock. There's a lot going on here. It's essentially a crater. And that's because this crater exists because the jump tether or reactor on this planet actually exploded. And so what we have now is a situation in which a bunch of Voyagers jump to this new planet and realize now that, y'all can't jump to the next planet without first kind of repairing this reactor, or essentially assisting the USA in repairing this reactor. And so I will be planning to leave it up to player-made frontier companies or non-affiliated players to sort of repair the reactor or build their own, and essentially thus like really becoming pioneers and like really kind of rolling up those sleeves and saying, okay, yeah, well, we got this far, let's keep going. And if all it takes is repairs and all we need is resources, then we're prepared to take on that challenge, right? So that's what we kind of have going on here on Bromius 2. Those are the dynamics. Of course, there will be recruiters and such that will try to recruit players. There will be a sort of existential threat, something I wanted to emphasize, as I feel like it brings players together. It's not a super combat heavy game so much as it is about logistics and socializing, just being social. And that's something I really wanted to emphasize in the game. Now, by hitting the D key, I can go ahead and depart. And something that always seemed to crash the game in the past was the stat screen. Of course, the "you feel fine" here being a little bit in the way. It's not supposed to be there, but I'm playing the game in non-full screen at the moment because, halfway through the video, I had to kind of come off and do a few things in the back end there. But I feel fine, right? So UESA is my space ID, class V for Voyager. I'm a human. My skills would be navigation, hardware, memory, software, ordnance, administration. So again, that kind of software, hardware, memory, that might contribute to, say, a scientific stat, which would allow players to, have higher success rates in activities like genetic engineering and so on. I suppose that's it for this video. We've been talking about quite a few features in the Discord, which you can go ahead and check out. I'll leave a link to the Discord in the description below. If you like the project, feel free to follow me on Twitter at DupeLaJoy. The game's website is apsis.online, currently pending a release on Steam. It's a one-man project, keep in mind, so things have been moving pretty slowly. Special thanks to the Vineyard House for hosting us. We have previously tried to crowdfund to very little success in the past, so we've done a few things as far as, or rather I've done a few things towards monetization and potential opportunities for the project in the future, like supporting Bitcoin and things like that for maybe a future store, or allowing people to subscribe to, the BBS for $1 or something like that, and get, bold usernames and little money up front, and just and things of that nature. The typical things. It won't be pay to win though, of course. Um, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, share it. Definitely looking to do something different here. Um, and I suppose that's it. I hope y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all soon.